The screaming started before I even saw what was happening. Sharp, panicked cries cut through the warm afternoon air of Meadowbrook Commons, piercing the usual peaceful hum of children playing in our community park. I dropped my gardening gloves and rushed toward the commotion, my heart already racing with the kind of dread that comes when you know something is terribly wrong. What I witnessed made my blood freeze. 9-year-old Sam Rodriguez was on his knees beside the playground equipment, his small body trembling violently, while Karen Whitfield, our HOA's self-appointed Community Standards Enforcement Officer, stood over him with her arms crossed, her face twisted with disgust and satisfaction. Sam's usual bright smile was gone, replaced by confusion and fear, as his hands shook uncontrollably. "I told you to stop that ridiculous shaking," Karen barked, her voice carrying across the playground with the authority she wielded like a weapon. "You're disturbing the other children with your dramatics." The other children had already scattered, their afternoon of tag and laughter abruptly ended by Karen's intervention. I could see them watching from behind trees and playground equipment, their young faces etched with confusion and worry for their friend. Sam tried to stand but stumbled, his coordination clearly compromised. I'm not being dramatic," Sam managed to whisper, his voice barely audible. "I don't feel good. I need my mom." Karen's laugh was cold and calculating. "Oh, please. I've been watching you for 20 minutes, running around like a maniac. And now suddenly you're sick. I know manipulation when I see it. Young man, you were caught stealing candy from the community center's welcome desk. And now you're trying to get out of trouble with this performance." My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, appeared beside me, her elderly face pale with concern. "That child looks genuinely ill," she whispered. "Karen's gone too far this time." I had lived in Meadowbrook Commons for 3 years, watching Karen's reign of terror gradually intensify. What started as overzealous enforcement of minor violations had escalated into something far more sinister. She had appointed herself the unofficial police force of our community, complete with a badge she had ordered online and a clipboard she carried everywhere, documenting perceived infractions with the dedication of someone who had found their true calling in making others miserable. Sam was different from the other children in our neighborhood, while his friends ran and played with endless energy. Sam moved more carefully, always carrying a small medical kit in his backpack. His mother, Maria, had explained to the neighbors when they moved in 6 months ago that Sam had type 1 diabetes, diagnosed when he was only 5 years old. She had shown us his glucose monitor, his insulin pens, and explained the signs of high and low blood sugar that we should watch for. "He's such a brave little boy," Maria had said, her eyes filled with the fierce protectiveness that only a parent of a chronically ill child understands. "He never complains, never uses his condition as an excuse. He just wants to be a normal kid." And Sam was remarkably normal. Considering the complexity of managing his condition, he played soccer in the community league, though he had to check his blood sugar before and after practice. He attended every birthday party and community event, his medical supplies discreetly tucked in his backpack. His laugh was infectious, his curiosity boundless, and his determination to not let diabetes define him was inspirational to everyone who knew him. Everyone except Karen Whitfield. From the day the Rodriguez family moved in, Karen had viewed Sam with suspicion. She complained to the HOA board that his glucose monitor's occasional beeping during community meetings was disruptive. She questioned whether his medical supplies belonged in the community pool area. She even suggested that his special dietary needs should disqualify him from community potluck events. Children with medical conditions require special accommodations that burden the entire community. She had argued during one particularly heated board meeting, "We have a responsibility to maintain standards that serve the majority of residents." The other board members had quickly shut down her discriminatory suggestions, but Karen's resentment had only grown stronger. She began watching Sam more closely, documenting his activities, and looking for any excuse to assert her authority over him. Now, watching Sam struggle to remain upright while Karen berated him, I realized her opportunity had finally arrived. "Stand up straight when I'm talking to you," Karen commanded, stepping closer to Sam. "Your mother isn't here to coddle you, so you need to face the consequences of your actions, like the little criminal you are." Sam's legs gave out completely, and he sat heavily on the ground, his breathing becoming rapid and shallow. I had seen Maria demonstrate the signs of low blood sugar, and Sam was displaying every single symptom. His skin was pale and clammy. His hands were shaking, and his speech was becoming slurred. "He needs help," I called out, starting to move toward them. "That child is having a medical emergency." Karen whirled around to face me, her eyes blazing with indignation. "This is official HOA business, and I don't appreciate interference from residents who don't understand the situation. This boy was caught red-handed stealing candy, and now he's trying to manipulate his way out of consequences with fake medical theatrics." "Those aren't theatrics, Mrs. Patterson said firmly, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had raised 5 children and seen genuine medical emergencies. "That child is in distress." Karen's face flushed with anger. "I have been trained in community emergency response, and I can assure you that what we're witnessing is a classic case of childhood manipulation. This boy has learned that claiming medical problems gets him special treatment, and I refuse to enable that kind of behavior." The irony of Karen's training was that she had attended a single 4-hour community emergency preparedness workshop 6 months earlier, emerging with a certificate and an inflated sense of medical expertise that was as dangerous as it was unfounded. Sam tried to speak, but could only produce unintelligible mumbles. His coordination was deteriorating rapidly, and I could see panic beginning to set in as he realized something was seriously wrong. "I'm calling his mother," I announced, pulling out my cell phone. "You will do no such thing," Karen snapped, moving to block my view of Sam. "I am handling this situation according to proper protocols. The last thing we need is an hysterical parent interfering with official procedures." "But I was already dialing," Maria answered on the first ring, her voice immediately tense when she heard my name. "Is Sam okay? He should be home by now." "Maria, you need to get to the community park immediately. Sam is having what looks like a severe low blood sugar episode, and Karen won't let anyone help him." The phone went silent for a moment before Maria's voice returned, tight with controlled panic. "I'm 2 minutes away. Keep him conscious if you can. Check his backpack for glucose tablets." I hung up and turned back to Karen, who was now crouched beside Sam, her clipboard balanced on her knee as she continued writing notes. "What are you doing?" "Documenting this incident for the official record," she replied without looking up. "The HOA board needs a complete report of his behavior, including his attempts to avoid responsibility through medical manipulation." Sam had gone very quiet, his eyes unfocused and his breathing shallow. The sight of this small boy in obvious distress while Karen documented his misconduct filled me with a rage I had never before experienced. "Give me his backpack," I demanded. "That backpack is evidence of his theft," Karen replied coolly. "It will be searched as part of the investigation, but only by properly authorized personnel." "Evidence of what theft? What candy are you talking about?" Karen's pause was telling. "The community center stocks complimentary candy for visitors. This boy was seen taking more than his fair share, which constitutes theft of community property." Mrs. Patterson snorted with disgust. Complimentary means free. Karen. And even if he took every piece of candy in that bowl, it wouldn't justify this treatment. The sound of running footsteps interrupted our argument. Maria Rodriguez appeared around the corner of the playground, her face a mask of maternal terror and determination. She took one look at Sam and immediately dropped to her knees beside him, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. "Sam, baby, can you hear me?" She was already unzipping his backpack, pulling out a glucose meter and testing strips. "We're going to get you fixed up right now." Karen stood up abruptly, her clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step away from the child. This is an official HOA investigation, and your interference could compromise the integrity of the proceedings." Maria's head snapped up, and the look she gave Karen could have melted steel. "My son is having a severe hypoglycemic episode. If you try to prevent me from treating him, I will have you arrested for child endangerment." "Now see here," Karen sputtered. "I am a certified community emergency responder, and I have assessed this situation as non-medical. This boy was caught stealing and is now attempting to manipulate his way out of consequences." Maria's glucose meter beeped, and she looked at the reading with visible alarm. "His blood sugar is 42. That's dangerously low." She was already opening a tube of glucose tablets, her movements quick and sure. "Sam, I need you to chew these for me. Can you do that?" Sam managed to nod weakly and began chewing the tablets, though his coordination was clearly impaired. Karen stepped closer, her voice rising with indignation. "I'm telling you that device could be showing anything. These medical gadgets can be manipulated to show false readings. I've seen it happen before." The absurdity of Karen's accusation that a 9-year-old boy had somehow rigged a medical device to fake a diabetic emergency was so outrageous that several neighbors who had gathered began openly laughing. "You think a 4th grader hacked a glucose meter?" asked Tom Davidson, who lived 3 houses down from us. "Karen, you've really lost it this time." Karen's face was now bright red, but her voice remained coldly authoritative. "I don't appreciate being mocked when I'm conducting official business. This situation requires professional oversight, not amateur medical interventions by untrained family members." Maria was now calling 911, her voice steady, despite her obvious fear. "I need an ambulance at Meadowbrook Commons Playground. My son is diabetic and has experienced severe hypoglycemia. His blood sugar was 42 when I tested it 5 minutes ago." Karen tried to grab the phone from Maria's hand. "Cancel that call immediately. Emergency services should not be contacted for non-emergency situations. The misuse of emergency resources is a serious offense." Maria pulled the phone away, her free hand protectively positioned over Sam. "Touch my phone, or my son again, and I will press charges for assault." The confrontation was escalating rapidly, and I could see that Karen was completely committed to her version of events. In her mind, she was the reasonable authority figure dealing with a manipulative child and his enabling mother. The possibility that she was wrong, that a child was genuinely in medical distress, seemed completely beyond her consideration. Sam's color was gradually improving as the glucose tablets took effect, but he was still weak and disoriented. Maria kept checking his blood sugar every few minutes, documenting the readings on her phone while murmuring reassurances to her son. "That's good. Baby, your sugar is coming up. Just keep chewing those tablets for me." Karen was now pacing in tight circles, her clipboard clutched against her chest, muttering about procedural violations and unauthorized medical interventions. Her behavior was becoming increasingly erratic, and I realized that she was too invested in her narrative to back down, even when faced with obvious evidence of her mistake. The wail of sirens announced the arrival of the ambulance, and 2 EMTs jogged across the park toward us. their equipment bags bouncing against their legs. The lead EMT, a woman in her 30s with kind eyes, immediately assessed the situation. "What's his blood sugar now?" she asked Maria, kneeling beside Sam. 68 and climbing. I gave him glucose tablets about 10 minutes ago." The EMT nodded approvingly. "Good job. How low did it go?" 42 when I first tested him." The EMT's expression grew serious. "That's definitely emergency territory. How long was he symptomatic before you arrived?" Before Maria could answer, Karen stepped forward with her clipboard raised. "I can provide a complete timeline of events. I've been monitoring this situation from the beginning, and I can assure you that this child was not experiencing any genuine medical emergency." The EMT looked at Karen with barely concealed incredulity. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step back so we can do our job. I'm the HOA's Community Standards Enforcement Officer, and this incident occurred during an official investigation. I have documentation proving that this child was engaged in theft and subsequently began faking medical symptoms to avoid consequences." The second EMT, a large man with graying hair, looked up from taking Sam's vital signs. "Are you claiming that a 9-year-old boy faked hypoglycemia?" "I'm stating that children are capable of sophisticated manipulation when they're trying to avoid punishment. This boy has learned that claiming medical problems gets him special treatment." The EMTs exchanged glances, and I could see them struggling to maintain their professional composure. "Ma'am," the female EMT said carefully, "hypoglycemia isn't something that can be faked. The physical symptoms are involuntary, physiological responses to low blood sugar." Karen's grip on her clipboard tightened. "Medical devices can malfunction. Test results can be misinterpreted. What can't be disputed is that I observed this child stealing candy and then conveniently developing symptoms when confronted about his behavior." By now, a crowd of neighbors had gathered, and the mood was turning decidedly hostile toward Karen. People were beginning to speak up, sharing their own experiences with her increasingly authoritarian behavior. "She tried to have my dog impounded because it barked during her afternoon nap," said Jennifer Walsh, who lived on the corner. "She issued me a citation for having the wrong shade of blue on my mailbox," added Robert Chen. "Apparently, my blue wasn't approved by the HOA color committee that she appointed herself to." "She's been harassing the Martinez family about their garden decorations for months," chimed in elderly Mr. Franklin. "Claims their ceramic gnomes violate community aesthetic standards." As the EMTs continued treating Sam, testing his blood sugar, and monitoring his recovery, Karen's version of events was falling apart. The theft she had witnessed was Sam taking a single piece of complimentary candy from a bowl specifically provided for community members. The manipulation she had documented was a genuine medical emergency that could have been life-threatening if left untreated. But Karen seemed incapable of acknowledging her mistake. Instead, she doubled down, insisting that the growing crowd of neighbors was part of some kind of conspiracy to undermine her authority. "This is exactly what I've been warning the board about," she announced loudly. "Residents are organizing to resist legitimate enforcement of community standards. They're using this manufactured medical crisis to discredit my investigation." Maria, who had been focused entirely on Sam's recovery, finally looked up at Karen with an expression of pure fury. "You prevented people from helping my son during a medical emergency. You tried to stop me from treating his hypoglycemia. You accused a 9-year-old diabetic child of faking a life-threatening condition. And you're still, even now, calling it manufactured." Sam's blood sugar had stabilized at 92, and his color was returning to normal. The EMTs were preparing to transport him to the hospital for observation, a standard procedure after severe hypoglycemia. "We'll need to take him in for a few hours," the female EMT explained to Maria. His levels dropped pretty low, and we want to make sure he doesn't have any delayed complications. As the EMTs wheeled Sam toward the ambulance, Karen made one final attempt to assert her authority. I'll need to file an incident report with the hospital administration regarding the misuse of emergency services. That was apparently the last straw for Tom Davidson, who stepped directly in front of Karen. Lady, if you don't back off right now, I'm calling the police myself. You've already done enough damage. Karen's eyes lit up with vindication. Excellent idea. The police should definitely be involved. I have extensive documentation of the theft, the manipulation, and now the intimidation I'm receiving from hostile residents. Tom pulled out his phone. Fine. Let's see what the cops think about your behavior. While Tom made the call, I stayed with Maria as the ambulance pulled away. She was trying to hold herself together, but the stress of the situation was clearly taking its toll. I should have gotten here sooner, she whispered, watching the ambulance disappear around the corner. If his blood sugar had dropped any lower. You can't blame yourself, I said firmly. Sam is fine because you knew exactly what to do. You saved him. But what if Karen had succeeded in preventing me from treating him? What if she had convinced people that he was faking it? The thought was too horrible to contemplate. Severe hypoglycemia can cause seizures, coma, and even death if left untreated. Karen's interference could have had tragic consequences. 2 police officers arrived within minutes, their patrol car pulling up beside the playground. Officer Rodriguez, no relation to Maria and Sam, and Officer Thompson approached our group with the measured calm of professionals accustomed to community disputes. We received a call about a disturbance involving a medical emergency and possible child endangerment, Officer Rodriguez said, scanning the crowd. Can someone explain what happened here? Karen immediately stepped forward, her clipboard at the ready. Officers, I'm Karen Whitfield, Community Standards Enforcement Officer for the Meadowbrook Commons HOA. I called you here to report theft, medical fraud, and intimidation by several residents who are attempting to undermine my investigation. Officer Thompson raised an eyebrow. Medical fraud. A 9-year-old boy was caught stealing candy from the community center. When I confronted him about the theft, he began faking medical symptoms to avoid consequences. His mother then arrived and staged an elaborate medical emergency, complete with fake device readings and unnecessary ambulance services. The officers looked skeptical, but they dutifully took notes as Karen recounted her version of events. She presented her clipboard documentation with the confidence of someone who believed her written record would vindicate her actions. When Karen finished, Officer Rodriguez turned to the crowd of neighbors. Does anyone else have information about this incident? What followed was a chorus of voices, each neighbor eager to share what they had witnessed. The officers heard about Sam's obvious distress, his visible symptoms, Karen's refusal to allow medical assistance, and her continued insistence that a diabetic emergency was fake, even after EMTs confirmed the diagnosis. Mrs. Patterson, despite her age, provided the most detailed and credible account. I've been a registered nurse for 40 years before I retired. That child was experiencing genuine hypoglycemia. His symptoms were textbook confusion, tremors, pallor, altered consciousness. Ms. Whitfield prevented bystanders from providing assistance and tried to stop his mother from administering treatment. Officer Thompson looked troubled. Ms. Whitfield, did you prevent the mother from treating her son's medical condition? Karen's confidence began to waver slightly. I prevented unauthorized medical interventions by untrained individuals. Community safety protocols require that medical emergencies be handled by certified personnel. The child's mother isn't trained to treat her own son's diabetes. Anyone can claim medical training. Anyone can purchase devices that display numbers. I couldn't allow potentially dangerous interventions based on unverified claims. Officer Rodriguez exchanged glances with his partner. Ms. Whitfield, what exactly is your training in medical emergency response? Karen straightened her shoulders. I completed the county's Community Emergency Preparedness Workshop. I am certified in basic emergency assessment and response coordination. That's a 4-hour workshop about disaster preparedness. Officer Thompson said slowly, it doesn't provide medical training. It provides the foundation for recognizing genuine emergencies versus manufactured situations designed to manipulate first responders. The officers were clearly losing patience with Karen's explanations, but they continued gathering information. They spoke with several neighbors, took photographs of the scene, and collected contact information for follow-up interviews. During this process, I noticed a black sedan pulling into the parking area beside the playground. A woman in an expensive suit got out and walked purposefully toward our group. She was tall, confident, and carried herself with the unmistakable bearing of someone accustomed to authority. Maria saw her at the same time I did, and her face broke into a smile of pure relief. Sarah. The woman quickened her pace and embraced Maria tightly. How is Sam? I came as soon as I heard. He's stable. They took him to the hospital for observation, but his blood sugar is back to normal range. Sarah's expression hardened. Tell me exactly what happened. As Maria recounted the incident, I studied Sarah more closely. There was something familiar about her, though I couldn't place where I might have seen her before. She listened to Maria's account with growing anger, her jaw tightening with each detail. Karen, meanwhile, had noticed the new arrival and was clearly trying to assess whether Sarah represented a threat to her narrative. When Maria finished explaining, Sarah turned toward Karen with a look that could have cut glass. You're the HOA official who prevented medical treatment of a diabetic child. Karen lifted her chin defiantly. I'm the Community Standards Enforcement Officer who prevented a manipulative child from exploiting fake medical claims to avoid consequences for theft. Sarah's voice was dangerously quiet. Fake medical claims. Children are capable of sophisticated deception when they're trying to avoid punishment. This boy has obviously learned that claiming medical problems gets him special treatment and sympathy. Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out a leather wallet, which she opened to reveal an official identification badge. I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell, Chief of Pediatric Endocrinology at Children's Hospital. I also happen to be Sam's aunt and the physician who has managed his diabetes since his diagnosis 4 years ago. The effect of this revelation was immediate and dramatic. Karen's face went white. The officers straightened with renewed attention, and the crowd of neighbors began murmuring with satisfaction. Dr. Mitchell continued in the same calm, professional tone. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune condition that destroys the pancreas's ability to produce insulin. Without insulin, the body cannot process glucose, leading to dangerous fluctuations in blood sugar levels. Hypoglycemia, or low blood sugar, can cause confusion, tremors, loss of consciousness, seizures, and death if left untreated. Karen tried to interrupt, but Dr. Mitchell held up a hand. The symptoms cannot be faked. The physical manifestations are involuntary, physiological responses. A blood glucose reading of 42 milligrams per deciliter, which is what Sam's mother measured, represents a medical emergency requiring immediate intervention. Karen's clipboard was shaking in her hands. But the theft. He was stealing candy. Diabetic children experiencing hypoglycemia may indeed seek out sugar sources instinctively. Their bodies are literally starving for glucose. Taking candy during a low blood sugar episode isn't theft. It's a survival response. Officer Rodriguez stepped forward. Dr. Mitchell, in your professional opinion, was this child's life in danger? Absolutely. Severe hypoglycemia can be fatal. The fact that this woman prevented bystanders from providing assistance and tried to stop his mother from administering treatment constitutes child endangerment at minimum. Karen was now visibly panicking. I didn't know. I couldn't have known. There was no way to verify. You could have asked. Doctor, Mitchell said coldly. You could have listened when multiple people tried to explain the situation. You could have deferred to the child's mother, who obviously knew how to manage his condition. Instead, you chose to prioritize your authority over a child's life. Officer Thompson was taking detailed notes. Dr. Mitchell, would you be willing to provide a formal statement about this incident? Absolutely. I'll also be filing a complaint with the hospital's ethics board regarding the misuse of emergency services claims. And I'll be consulting with our legal department about potential charges. Karen looked around desperately, seeking support from the neighbors who had gathered. She found none. Even residents who had previously been intimidated by her tactics were now openly hostile. This is all a misunderstanding, Karen stammered. I was trying to protect the community. I was following proper procedures. Your procedures nearly killed a child. Doctor, Mitchell replied, and even now, after being presented with medical evidence and professional testimony, you're still trying to justify your actions instead of acknowledging the harm you caused. The officers finished taking statements and informed Karen that she would likely face charges related to child endangerment and interference with emergency medical care. They also suggested that she might want to consult with an attorney before making any further statements. As the police prepared to leave, Dr. Mitchell turned to address the crowd of neighbors. I want to thank everyone who tried to help Sam today. Your quick thinking and willingness to intervene may have prevented a tragedy. She paused, looking directly at Karen. I also want to make something very clear. My nephew is a sweet, brave child who has never used his diabetes as an excuse for anything. He manages a complex medical condition with remarkable maturity and never complains about the daily challenges he faces. The suggestion that he would fake a medical emergency is not only medically impossible, but deeply offensive. Karen had no response. She clutched her clipboard to her chest and walked away without another word, her authority completely undermined and her credibility destroyed. As the crowd began to disperse, Dr. Mitchell approached me. Maria tells me you were one of the first people to recognize that Sam was in distress. Thank you for calling her so quickly. I just did what anyone would do. I'm sorry Karen prevented us from helping sooner. Dr. Mitchell's expression grew thoughtful. Actually, I'm not sure this incident was entirely unfortunate. Karen's behavior today has exposed a serious problem that needed to be addressed. She's been escalating her harassment of families in this community for months, and it was only a matter of time before someone got seriously hurt. Over the next several weeks, the fallout from the playground incident continued to unfold. Karen was indeed charged with child endangerment and interference with medical care. The HOA board, faced with overwhelming community pressure and potential legal liability, removed her from all official positions and banned her from any future involvement in community enforcement. The incident also prompted a comprehensive review of HOA policies and procedures. The board implemented new guidelines requiring actual training for anyone claiming authority in emergency situations, established clear protocols for medical emergencies, and created an oversight committee to prevent future abuses of power. Sam recovered completely from his hypoglycemic episode, though the psychological impact took longer to heal. For several weeks, he was reluctant to play in the community park without his mother present, fearing another confrontation with authority figures who might not believe his medical needs were genuine. Dr. Mitchell arranged for a community education session about diabetes and other chronic conditions affecting children. The presentation was well attended and helped neighbors understand the challenges faced by families managing serious medical conditions. Karen remained in the community, but became increasingly isolated. Her attempts to maintain her narrative about Sam's fake medical emergency found no supporters, and her credibility was permanently destroyed. She eventually moved away, leaving behind a community that was more united and more vigilant about protecting its most vulnerable members. The incident served as a powerful reminder that authority without accountability can be dangerous, and that sometimes it takes a crisis to expose problems that have been festering beneath the surface. In the end, Sam's frightening experience led to positive changes that made Meadowbrook Commons a safer and more inclusive place for all its residents. As I watched Sam return to his normal activities, playing with friends and managing his diabetes with the same quiet courage he had always shown, I reflected on the importance of community solidarity in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Sometimes the most ordinary neighborhoods hide the most extraordinary acts of both cruelty and kindness. And it is up to all of us to ensure that kindness prevails. The playground where it all began became a symbol of that commitment. Children still play there every afternoon, their laughter filling the air with joy and hope. And now, everyone who watches over them understands that protecting our community means protecting all its members, especially those who need us most.